It was the 3rd of October, I believe, 2 years ago, Patrick McHenry, that the Speaker of the House was dispatched. That was a day that changed your life.
It was. I was reminded, Speaker McCarthy called me as I was coming into the studio today. He says, you know what this is? And
Look at
that's what it is. I'm not as angry as I was that day. But Speaker McCarthy has done quite well since leaving Congress. He's working in the business community. He's got a fabulous life, and remains a dear friend. Even despite the fact that
they're going to keep this
loop
going
Speaker
on.
Pro Tem.
This is where CC has invoked the video from October 3rd of Chairman, then Speaker Pro Tem McHenry, taking it all out on that gavel. But it's
2 years ago, and McCarthy was vacated by a small group of people led by Matt Gaetz.
Yes, of course.
Small group of Republicans, because he had passed a clean continuing resolution.
Here we are again.
Here we are, 2 years ahead, and it's Republicans that are the responsible party passing a clean continuing resolution. The dynamics have so shifted on this. And today is a fascinating day. So we're going to continue to watch the Senate. The action on Capitol Hill is on the Senate side. The House did its job. They passed a clean continuing resolution. The Senate is going to just wrestle with a date change and continue to vote on this. And Leader Thune, I think, is doing a masterful job of being disciplined as leader and just saying, well, you're going to be accountable on a regular basis, multiple times a week, for your words and your actions to his Democratic colleagues. Chuck Schumer and a large enough group to pass it on the Democratic side voted for this same policy back in March. Because of the flack that Leader Schumer got in particular from his Democratic base, he was in a political box. Leader Jeffries has a very different set of circumstances. He just wants to become Speaker of the House. And as minority leader, that's kind of your obligation. Get the majority so you can be relevant. The House is not a relevant thing in this conversation. The action is in the Senate on how the reopening occurs because of the filibuster. And so the filibuster is the vote that they're trying to break right now. They need 60 votes for that, and they need a few more Democrats to participate in it. But this is playing out in a very, very bizarre and different way than previous shutdowns. It's seemingly it hasn't had a dramatic effect here in D.C. It seems like it's much ado about nothing. How it's kind of playing out in the body politic, which is different than previous shutdowns.
It does feel different. And I will note for the record, Patrick McHenry said the last time you were here, when we said, just wait for October, chaos, you said. You have no idea the insanity that we're in for. And here we are. And that begs the question, are there off-ramps? Are we doing this for weeks? We talked to Jeanne Shaheen and some other potential deal makers, and I know that the House isn't in the mix right now, but we talked to Tom Cole as well. And I say, like, we're ready to make a deal. We're talking. We're actually not that far apart. Do you see it that way?
Well,
these are very informal talks, by the way.
These are informal talks, not led by the leaders.
This is on the floor. This is
not.
Just
you see Hakeem Jeffries having a press conference yesterday saying nobody's called him.
Right.
Which shows he's not relevant to the conversations. Then you see the pack of senators. I think the interesting action is going to be watching the senators have conversations on the Senate floor. There are a couple things that are true. One is I think you will have a clean reopen vote. I think that will be the case. I think the end of this is Democratic submission to reopen the government. Then I think there is a willingness between some Republicans and the White House to extend for a period of time some of the Obamacare provisions that will expire at the end of this year, but not the full policy. I think that's the end point still. That was actually going to be the case regardless of the shutdown, is that there's a reasonableness component within the White House and among congressional Republicans that an extension of these subsidies for another year makes a lot of sense. And that's the Democratic ask, along with a bunch of other things they've added to the list, which don't quite fit. But I think there is a modest deal to be had post-reopen. Even if they didn't have the government shutdown, that would be the end state for the end of the year.
So how do you get to the deal then if they need the deal to reopen the government?
Submission. Submission. And how do you get to submission? Pain.
What does that look like?
Well, it looks like pain on federal employees. I think Rust's vote has a plan of action that is intense and intensely painful for Democratic senators in particular and Democratic constituencies. He has enormous power as OMB director, and he's going to use it.
So that's not just a threat.
Oh, no, it's not a threat.
Cuts are coming.
It's real, and he has an active imagination and massive power. And together, I think he's going to do things different going into next week that are different than this week.
You see the Rust vote is the Reaper video? It was passed. The president posted last night. He's got the big cloak and the Sith, and it doesn't look like that's something that the Democrats are making up.
The memes are amazing, completely amazing of this fight, which takes it to an internet level of craziness and zaniness.
Mariachi bands included.
Oh gosh, but all that is to say the Democratic constituencies are going to feel pain, and Democrat politicians are going to feel pain in order to come to the table to have a clean reopen vote. That's what happened in 2013 when Republicans shut down the government over what? Healthcare, over Obamacare.
Yeah,
here we are. 12 years later, same issue set, flipped constituencies. It's a really bizarre thing happening right now.
So why wait on the cuts then? Or is John Thune or the leaders saying, hey, give us a minute, White House, because this isn't going to help anybody? If we do see furloughs turn into layoffs, does that make the trust quotient even worse?
I think so, and but it also is a ratcheting effect of pain.
All right,
and frankly, it's a couple of things that I think are interesting here. One is the power dynamic on Capitol Hill between Schumer and Jeffries, and how that plays out. The second piece is OMB, and I think that's a substantial piece of action and activity, and then the political calculus by the White House on the ways that they can execute pain on their Democratic opposition. Those are the things we're going to see play out, and how they're going to ratchet down the impact on Democrats on Capitol Hill, Democratic senators.
We're seeing some cuts already in terms of funding for blue states. You saw the transit money for Chicago, New York, losing billions of dollars. Tom Tillis, who you know well, from North Carolina, senator, said earlier to Bloomberg, I think that digs us into a deeper hole. I think if you do that, you're going to create a bad faith environment. They need to be very judicious. Would you agree?
They need to be judicious, but the Democrats have made a choice here. And what they have done is argue for years that Donald Trump is an authoritarian, and he will seek to claim power and not respect checks and balances. A government shutdown under operation of law gives enormous authority to the director of OMB to carry out wide-ranging policy decisions. And the law is either on the side of the OMB director or silent. And in that silence, they're going to fill the void. So my Democratic friends are saying an authoritarian, and they're taking actions to give him more enhanced power over the federal workforce and the size and scope of government. It's an extraordinary thing that I don't think they've quite thought through. And I think next week you'll see this discussed more on the Democratic side.
Okay, so that sounds then like you see light at the end of the tunnel. If they're having that conversation next week, are we reopen a week later?
The light at the end of the tunnel could also be a train. So we have to be very careful about this. The way these things, these shutdowns work is that, it could end today. It could end in this vote series on Capitol Hill today. And we're going to we have to follow this day by day, hour by hour, because it is that fluid. And could end Monday. It could be Thanksgiving. And it's as wide ranging as that.
Wow. So you're not going to try to predict anything here. What do you think of the Republican line that we keep hearing that this is all about? And you walked right up to it. Chuck Schumer afraid to be primaried by AOC. It's as you could fit it on a bumper sticker. I hear it from almost every Republican lawmaker that we talk to, and most of them don't know Chuck Schumer very well. Is that just an easy story to tell, or is that what's going on here?
I think there's a serious story to tell on that matter. And we saw how bludgeoned Schumer was coming out of March. We saw the flack that he took.
A lot of people saw a shutdown
we saw the difference between Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer in that moment, that divide, and they lived like a borough apart, right? an odd thing for them to be separated. Then we see them linked hand in hand with this shutdown now. And you think, well, I think that shows that Schumer is capitulating. The challenge here, though, is that Hakeem Jeffries does not need to be a part of any of the deal-making to reopen the government. Doesn't have to. You saw Speaker Johnson and the leadership team in the House produce a continuing resolution without the need for Democratic votes. In the Senate, because the filibuster, Schumer's going to have to participate in that. So at the end of the day, it's not going to be a good outcome for him. He's picked a fight that he cannot win with his Democratic base. Which is, I think, a political mistake on his part.
This is why the clock is going to be ticking. How do you peel off a couple of more Democrats? We've already seen 3 roll over here. Angus King, who caucuses with Democrats, part of the group. You don't need that many more, and then you don't have to make a deal to reopen the government. Is that possible? Does John Thune have the skill?
No, John Thune has the skill, and he's got the discipline. He and his leadership team have had enormous discipline, and not taking the Democratic bait, and also going out and messaging, continue to talk in a very disciplined way.
Should he meet with Chuck Schumer?
There's no need to.
No need to.
No
Isn't
need
it
to.
good politics, though, just for the picture?
Nope. No, because at that point, the only way you get out of the shutdown is the way Republicans got out of the shutdown with Obama in 2013, which is agree to reopen the government, and then you negotiate thereafter. What happened in 2013, after that we reopened government, there were modest but significant changes to Obamacare as a direct impact, but that was separated in time, optically from the shutdown. And that was the only way you could have the conversation. We're in a similar situation here.
We've got less than a minute. Is Kevin Cramer right? You've got moral high ground, which isn't always the case for Republicans on a shutdown?
Everyone thinks they're winning.
They sure do.
This is the reason why this shutdown is so different. My Democratic friends think that they have the high moral ground. My Republican friends, they think they have the high moral ground. We will see who wins in this thing, but it's more of a wrestling match for submission. Right? And down for the count. That doesn't make you feel like this is a moral debate.